And we should be live. You are now live. Hello, hello.
Yay!
Yay. Let's just check my Facebook and just see if it's true.
It says, I just got a notification. It says,
Fantastic.
you're
Apparently,
live.
we are live. So, for those of you out there in the world, welcome, welcome. And if you didn't see our live from yesterday, we're using some new technology, and I can see the comments coming through, but I can't see all the wonderful like hearts and stuff. So please still send us some love and some hearts because I get to see all that after. But also, please just let us know if you're joining and if you have questions, because the comments come up. I think there's a little bit of a delay because there's a couple comments I didn't see, but I saw most of the comments coming through. So I'm happy to read them out loud, and we can maybe address them if there is anything that's coming through live. And of course, if you're watching this on the replay, I always check back. So if you do happen upon this video sometime in the future, wonderful, and ask us questions because we're happy to respond. Let's get into it. So welcome, who we are. I'm Jen Plotnikoff, Fear Alchemist, Shadow Alchemist, and I have with me today a brilliant, brilliant woman when it comes to sacred branding, when it comes to business, when it comes to synergizing, really like using energy and magic in a super practical way to get her clients amazing results. If you're following me, you're probably really curious about this lovely, lovely human in front of me, or actually, I guess, beside me. You can't even see me, so this is really funny.
However, we're showing up.
Yes, exactly. Because, I mean, I work with visionaries and emerging leaders, and you work with visionaries and creatives and entrepreneurs and all sorts of incredible people really doing amazing things in this world. And you help people to really show up. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. And I'm just going to pass it on to you to tell us a little bit who you are again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name is Umoh. My business is called Sacred Branding. I love what I do, and I love bringing together the sacred and the strategic, the magical and the practical. I love being on purpose in your brand and profitable. So I don't believe that we have to choose one or the other. Um, I don't believe that we need to hustle our asses off. Yes, you have to work, but if you do this inner work and this inner alignment, it creates outer alignment, and then everything just moves a lot faster, and it's easier to attract high quality clients, to show up in the world, to make more money, to sell your offerings, fill your programs, all that sort of thing.
Awesome. Awesome. And that is such important work because especially when it comes to there's so many people out there that may not even really identify themselves as entrepreneurs, like healers and artists and creatives, but we are entrepreneurs. We wear
Definitely.
many different hats. We do our healing work, but in order to really make an impact and really show up in the way that we need to show up in the world, we do need to take care of some of that inner work to really be able to do that in an effective way and reach more people and reach the right people that we're meant to work with. So yes. And just as a quick recap, this is part 2. Yesterday is part 1. So if you're just joining us right now, you can watch part 1, which is on my profile and I think in your group and my group. And by the way, speaking of groups, Moved by Spirit is the name of my group. And Umoh, it's the Dark Temple, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So really, 2 really great communities. There's really awesome content in there, information and support. And so that's a really wonderful way to kind of, if you're looking for a little bit more support in this kind of realm, if this is really speaking to you, that's a really good place to land because we need community. This is the other thing. So yesterday we were talking a lot about kind of the energy around anger and sacred anger and how there's a lot of like shame and guilt and stuff around this and kind of fear because it's a really intense sort of fiery emotion. And I want to bring this back because you talked about using the energy in terms of like cooking and like alchemy, and there's different ways so we can kind of burn through things, but we can also simmer and like really use this energy to create and intermingle different, like ingredients. And I think it's important to start to like decompress, and start to look at anger in a little bit of a different light because it has really potent energy. And when we can, like you said yesterday, step one is just allowing ourselves, having permission to experience that. But then when we start to kind of do that, then we can kind of get into this place where we can play with it. So that's where we are at today. So
Yes, yes. So yeah, and I wanted to just add one piece to what we talked about yesterday, and then today I want to dive into like, okay, now let's apply this to our work and our brands and how we're showing up in the world. But I want to say one thing about how to work with the anger. So if you guys listened to the if you listened yesterday, I talked about how sometimes we think we have to do something with our anger and we don't. We can just be with it and feel it, and we don't necessarily need to like express it or like react to it and just be with it. And so this is part of how you can start to like harness the power and the potency of anger, is that in that being with your anger and just allowing yourself to kind of like percolate in that energy, then you can listen and you can hear what is the message that it's bringing you, right? What's the medicine that it's bringing you? Um, what's the download that's available? What's the shift that you can make, right? So a lot of times when we're angry, it's all about like injustice and what other people did and like how we've been wronged. And it can be it can have an element that's very victimy, right? So, but when you go into this place and you're quiet in your own energy and you're just open to listening to your anger, then you can see what was my part in this? What was my responsibility in creating this? And what shifts can I create so that I create a different and better experience for myself in any area of my life, right? So that's another big piece of how we start to really like harvest the medicine. And I
I
just wanted
love
to tie
that.
that last piece in before we dive into the new stuff for today.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for kind of like really that I think to me too speaks to like the permission piece that we were talking about yesterday. That like when we can kind of take away some of like the judgment and all that kind of stuff that we have, the yuckiness and it doesn't feel good, then we can start to kind of like really look at, well, how can we, it's energy. Like, how can we use that energy? How can we work with that energy? What does it feel like? What are the nuances? Getting to know what that's like for you. And like you said, harnessing it and actually using it in a way that, because it's a creative force, right?
Yes,
A huge
exactly,
creative
exactly.
force.
Hmm.
Yeah, awesome. So today you were going to share with us some juicy little nuggets about how we, and I actually had a little bit more time to create a better title for this video. So basically, I talked about, sharing some of the secret sauce about how sacred anger can help us stand out, and the whole branding and the whole energy behind how we can show up. And I like to think about branding as like, how do I show up authentically? How do I show up as me and be comfortable as me so that people can connect? And that's really, I don't know. So what is your kind of definition of branding? And then how does anger, sacred anger, work with that?
Yes, yes. Okay, awesome. I love the way that you framed that. And that's kind of my personal orientation to branding. And a lot of times, people, the reason why people don't like branding or they think branding is fake is because the mainstream approach to branding is using branding as like a costume or a shield or something that you hide behind, right? And my philosophy is to use your brand as a way to reveal more of yourself instead of less. And that's where the power is. So that's my philosophy on branding. What's my definition of branding? So, branding is about how you make people feel. It's about the experience that you provide for them, right? So, Maya Angelou has that saying, like, I don't remember exactly, but I think it's like people don't always remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel, right?
Mm.
So, it's about that like, know, and trust factor. Like, do I know who you are enough to connect with you? Do I like you enough to want to like invest with you and give you my money and spend my time with you? Do I trust you to get me the results that you're promising me? Right. Um, it's also about your reputation and in your industry and your character and the quality of your contribution, right? So how you're showing up in all ways. It's also so that's what it's about first and foremost, right? And then on the more like strategic business side, it's about how you're positioning yourself and what you do in the marketplace. So that's my definition of what branding means and what it's actually really about.
I love that. I love that. It also shows like a lot of us want, this term authenticity gets thrown out so much to the point where sometimes people struggle with using that. But that's really what we're looking for as humans is authentic connection. And so
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is we're doing in the world, whether it's, some of us are doing some pretty deep healing work. And so if we don't show up 100% authentically as, for me, like if I don't show up as me, and be willing to be vulnerable in that and secure in that vulnerability, you know, it's very difficult for me to connect with my client who is asking them to lead me through like the shadows of the
Right.
darkness, right? Like here's
Exactly.
not like an easy, woohoo, fluffy thing. So yeah, I love that. That's really, really important and really potent. And I think that's sometimes why we struggle, especially as entrepreneurs, is we show up not, we think we have to show up as someone who we're not. And we think
Yes,
that's what branding is.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite. And I did that for several years. I thought, okay, well, if I want to talk about business and teach people about business, I need to like be corporate-ish and professional, and I need to like look a certain way and like wear suits, which is like totally ridiculous. I don't wear suits. You can see this isn't my suits is not my aesthetic, right? It never has been. And like I've never worked in corporate America, right? But I thought like that's the persona that I should adopt in order to be taken seriously. And I literally did that for years. And I will tell you, it was awful. I didn't make money and I worked really hard with not a lot of results, right? Because I was doing everything that I thought I was supposed to be. I was hiding myself. And here's the interesting thing about that. When you hide who you are, you think like people don't see, but they do. And it just makes you look bad because they're seeing like who you really are, and then there's who you're showing up as that you think you're supposed to, and there's a big gap and there's incongruence, and that's unattractive, and it's the opposite of being magnetic in your brand, right? So part of when things started to shift for me, because I felt like, oh, I'm too woo woo, I'm too crazy. I'll just talk about the strategic stuff and I'll trick people into doing the inner woo woo work once they pay me and get behind the scenes. That didn't work out very well. Right. So it wasn't until I got to that point where I was like, this is who I am. This is what I'm really offering people. This is my where my gifts and my power lies. Part of that is about intuition. Part of that is about the deep spiritual inner work and journey, right? That's it's not one or the other. It's both. That's my gift that I give to people. And so by hiding one aspect, I'm basically squelching down half of my power and potency, right? And that's what we do a lot of times. So as soon as I started to tell the truth and bring the pieces together, and this is when I created sacred branding, right? It's the sacred is the more spiritual side, and the branding is the strategic side. That's when I started to actually like enjoy my work, and people started to come to me for the first time ever, and people started to come and ask me about working with me, and I didn't have to hunt and chase every single client down, right? So that's just a, subtle, not so subtle, but it's a subtle shift that can make a huge difference in your business, in your brand, and in your life.
I love that. And showing up 100%, speaking of showing up 100%, I think this is where we struggle is, when it comes to things like shadow aspects like anger,
Hmm.
this is where it's easy to be like, oh, I'm not an angry person, or I'm not this, I don't want to identify with that aspect. That's,
Hmm.
low
That's
vibe. Like
uncomfortable.
yeah, exactly. And there's like a lot of BS around this whole low vibe thing, which is like, I'm in the spiritual community
Hmm.
all over that. I see this all the time where you want to manifest, you want to raise your vibration, and you want to get rid of like the low vibe emotions that are really
Hmm.
part of who we are. The low
Yes.
vibe part is actually a relationship, not the emotion itself. So let's talk
Yes,
a little bit about
exactly.
that.
Yes. And so, actually, if you do want to raise your vibration, if you do want to authentically raise your frequency and have it be something that, this is the key part, isn't isn't something that you just do one time. It's something that you can sustain consistently, which is a huge part of the reputation of your brand, right? Then you need to go into those darker, more scary, intimidating emotions. You need to do that darker work, or you'll never unpack the stuff that's your baggage, right? Which we all have, every single one of us, you know?
Yeah. So
So,
how do you work? Oh, sorry.
yeah, go
I
ahead, go ahead, go
was just going
ahead.
to ask you, like, how do you bring in some of these elements
Yes.
in
Okay.
branding?
So let's talk about that. So, for most of us, we can have this experience of kind of like, let's say we're kind of metaphorically looking around the room, right? And we can see like something's kind of off in our industry. Something's not right. And this is probably connected to part of the passion of like why we started our business in the first place, right? So there's some like pink elephant or red herring in the room, right? But it's like, well, nobody else is talking about it. And it's like, well, I don't want to attack other people or make them look bad or make people uncomfortable. So I'll just be quiet. And so it's like, no, that's like, this is where you can activate, like, step in, lean into that part that like pisses you off about like what's missing in your industry, what's off, what are the lies that people are telling in your industry, right? Just like that example that you gave, Jen, of like, the whole story of like in the spiritual community, like, oh, you need to just be high vibe and don't be negative, and like, oh, let's just focus on the light and love, and like let's just not look at that, and that then hopefully it'll just go away. you know so that's an example right there of like something that probably pisses you off when you see that, right? And as you lean into that, that helps you to create a brand distinction, right? And your brand distinctions are what makes you special and unique, and that's what makes you stand out in the marketplace, right? And so the stronger and more defined and more charged your brand distinctions get, the easier it is for your high quality, what I call soul family clients to find you, right? And that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, as you step into your power, it's less about having to hunt people down and find clients, and it's more about showing up in a bigger, bolder way so they come to you, right?
Mm.
And so when we get to a place where we're okay with our anger and we give ourselves permission to like lean into it and feel it and listen to it, then we can get into deep resonance with our own sacred truth. And as you're speaking that, that is the brand voice that's going to connect to the heart and soul of those ideal soul family clients.
Yeah. And well, the other thing too is most of those little things that, bother us or piss us off are things that when we actually show up and say them, that's when we get the most engagement with people too. That's when we get noticed because everyone's been thinking it. It's just no
Exactly.
one has had the guts to actually say it. And it doesn't mean we have to show up and, rant. It can be
No.
like, I remember a post I did and it was about like letting go and this idea of letting go and how I think it's total BS. And I kind of deconstructed about it. And it was incredible the amount that people had to say about that, right? Because we don't have a conversation around that. Everyone's talking about the love and the light and how you're supposed to let go, but then we're all trying to do it and we're like, but how the hell does this shit work? It's not working
Right.
for me. Is it working for you? But no one's,
Yeah.
like, we're kind of like afraid to say anything about it because we're like, well, there must be something wrong with me, right? That's
Exactly.
usually our go-to.
I'm
And so
just not
realizing,
getting it.
yeah, there's something wrong with me. Like everybody else seems to get it. It's just me. And then you say that and it gives other people also permission, like
Exactly.
even in talking about anger and sacred anger, if you're watching this, we're giving you permission to explore an aspect of yourself that you have, because we all have that. But it's really like powerful. It's harnessing the energy of it, it's harnessing the potency of it. I love
Right.
that. I love that. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's like what you said, you start to have a different quality. And so what you're doing in your conversations, right? And so what you're doing is you're up leveling the quality of your conversation. And that's how you actually become a thought leader in your industry. And that's also like what I said earlier, those up leveled conversations are going to attract an up leveled quality of client. Right.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is not necessarily that this person like has tons of money, because a lot of people think that and then they go chase people with money, and that's not necessarily who their ideal client is. But what I'm talking about is someone who has like a deep resonance with you, who has a deep connection, who speaks the same language, who is on the same frequency, who is understanding the value of your work and what you're offering, and is willing to invest and feels good about paying whatever rates you're charging because they get the value of it, and someone who's going to show up and do the work and understands that investing with someone else doesn't mean that other person's going to do the work for you or carry them. Right? So that's what I'm talking about with that idea of a high level quality soul family client.
I love that. Yeah, and the other thing too, just to, because we've been talking about this, but I just wanted to kind of actually just say this, speak the words, is,
Mm-hmm.
in that uniqueness, that's also, I think sometimes people we trick ourselves into thinking, oh, there's many people that do Akashic readings, or there's many people that do Reiki work, or whatever kind of, especially with healers, there's a lot of healers out there. But as
Right.
someone who reaches out to healers, I'm very particular about who I hire, because they have to be a particular type of person. I have to really resonate with them. And even, like,
Mm-hmm.
I have a therapist that I work with, and, I was like, I'm not going to just, hire you, even though I know you. And, I'd known her for a couple of years. I'm like, I want to know if it's the right fit. I get that you're a great person.
Mm-hmm.
And so we forget that, when we're looking for the right person, that there are people that are looking for us. We are the right person. And so if we don't show up honestly, then we're not actually illuminating, ringing the bell of like how we can actually help the people that we're meant to help.
Yes, yes, I love that. And I love that you brought up that the fact of like, yeah, it's easy to say, to get discouraged and be like, oh, there's so many other people that do what I do. And this is why the branding part is so important, is because that helps you to understand what makes you special, what makes you unique, what distinguishes you in the marketplace. Why would someone hire you over someone else who's also really good at what they do and a nice person, right? And this stuff that we're talking about, like what is it that you want to take a stand for, is a big part of that. Where do you want to speak truth to your industry, right? All of these things are going to solve that problem for you of like, well, why should someone hire me over any of the other, hundreds, thousands of people who do what I do, right? And this is becoming more of a thing because when I first started, there wasn't a lot of people doing this. There wasn't anybody doing any of the stuff that I was doing in the way that I was doing it. Now there are. Some people are doing their own things. Some people liked what I did and was like, I'll do that too. You know?
Yeah.
So there, I'm not really big on the idea of competition per even competition as far as like, oh, like, there's room for everyone at the table. That's my belief. And because there are more people, it is more important for you to do this work to clarify for yourself, who am I? What do I have to offer? Why do I stand out? And this sacred anger can be a really powerful piece to help you figure what that out.
Yeah, I love that. The other aspect weaving in, when we're connected with our anger, there's a force, there's a power there, there's a potency there. It doesn't necessarily look like we're yelling at everybody or we're imploding, but
Right.
in order to harness that, I just wanted you to touch on something we chatted about yesterday, which is kind of like this idea of about branding and how like individuals as branding is actually like it's an emerging thing. It's actually a very powerful thing. For example, then like because again, I think sometimes we get hung up on this word brand or branding where we're not really seeing it for the simplicity that it is, but also the power that it is. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure, definitely. So this is, I used to say like this is the era of the personal brand, and I thought like, oh, maybe that was changing or that was coming to an end, but it's only actually accelerating and getting like more intense. So for example, I'm gonna use like the toy industry and like my daughter and Christmas, right? So for Christmas, um, she wants toys. She doesn't want toys. She wants merch from her favorite YouTubers, right?
Yeah.
She did, and like, um, you know, she doesn't want the big brand. She doesn't care about that. She wants the small personal brand. She wants the Christmas sweater from her favorite YouTuber. That's $85. That's what she wants. you know? So that's just like the perfect example of like the power of personal brand. And it's just like some random guy who like does show tunes because she's into show tunes and is like very embracing of himself and like diversity and other people, and like that's something she's passionate about, right? So that's what she wants for Christmas. And so before, even 3 or 4 years ago, like that would be unheard of that your kid would ask you for like merch from a YouTuber. But it's like that's just an example to give you to give testimony to the power of the personal brand and how that's changed the entire landscape of commerce and capitalism in the marketplace, right? And this goes back to speaking to the conversation about like quote unquote competition, like before it was normal, like everyone just goes gets a job and like you just do it, and you don't like your job, too bad. That's just life. Oh well, right? But people are like, no, that's not okay with me anymore. Like I'm gonna go off and do my own thing. And we have this unprecedented opportunity to create, right? And to start businesses and to do all these different things. And the cornerstone of that is the power of the personal brand, right? So, like I'll give Kim Kardashian as an example. Like people love to hate Kim Kardashian, but she built her entire brand completely on like who she is and her brand identity, right? Like she's famous for nothing, people love to say, but she works very hard, and she's very strategic, and she's very clear about her brand identity, and she sticks to it, and she works her brand strategy around that strategically. And that's why she's been around doing what she does, which some people will call nothing, for 10 years and making a fuck ton of money. You can hate her all you want, but she's a very smart businesswoman.
I love that. And the other element I think that's really important is there's so many people that I see in the entrepreneurial world that kind of sometimes struggle with this. We know we want to have a successful business because that means that, we can have a family and feed our kids and pay our rent and do all those things. And we often are like shooting ourselves in the foot because we have this like contrary belief to what commerce is or what business is. But we are like missing on what it could be because like guaranteed if you're watching us right now you're not Kim Kardashian, you're like a super amazing human. And so imagine, like I think about looking around the amazing humans that I have in my own circle, my own community, my inner but as well as my outer community and my clients. And these are the people that I'm like rooting for. That's why I'm like so personally invested in my clients, because I'm like, they're such potent, powerful people that often have these insecurities that, guess what, we all have. Like, I have them too. I have super lots of insecurities, even though I seem very, very confident, but it's
Oh
something that
yeah,
we
me
work
too.
on.
I
And
can be super insecure.
yeah, we all are. It's part of the human experience. But as
Hmm.
we work with these energies, we get to show up. And we
Hmm.
do. We all have a particular medicine that we bring to this world. And even in the world of commerce, that we work in, there is more collaboration and there's so
Hmm.
much abundance and creation in that. And so I think that it's beautiful that you highlighted the power of the personal brand as a wonderful vehicle
Hmm. Yes,
for
it's a vehicle for your mission. It's a vehicle for your
exactly,
purpose. It's a
exactly,
vehicle for your vision, whatever that is for you, right? And
totally.
like going back to the Kim Kardashian example, this is another aspect of like dark work or shadow work is a lot of times like we cut ourselves off from learning things from people because we don't like them or we don't identify with their value system, and then we miss out on a lot of opportunities, right? Kim
Yeah,
Kardashian's not my favorite person, but she can teach anybody, if you pay attention, a fuck ton about branding. you know, especially as a personal brand that's been going strong for like 10 years. Started from literally nothing, like, you know, she's like they said, like I said, she's famous for nothing. So if someone's has a humongous career that's famous for nothing, then they're basically making magic out of nothing. That's someone that I will give myself permission to pay attention to, even if they're not my favorite person. you know?
yeah, yeah. No, that's really, really true. And I think it's important to actually, once we start to give ourselves permission and we kind of remove some of the judgment around that kind of stuff, we really open ourselves up to so much more information that's just knocking on the door, like literally pounding. Even I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday about this challenge, and she's like challenging situation with her new boss. And she's like, I have like the inner bitch comes out, and she's like, I don't like being that person. But here's the thing is we all have an inner bitch. And when we have
Mm-hmm.
a great relationship with that woman, because she needs to show up sometimes,
She does.
she needs, yeah, like when we need, when we're in the place where we need to say no, sometimes no works, but sometimes it needs to
Mm-hmm.
be a fucking hell no, because that's all the
Yes.
other person's going to hear. So we
Yes.
need to be able to dig in to those
Mm-hmm.
places and spaces rather than be like, I don't like that part of me. I don't like to, it's not the energy I want to be in, but it is part of your energy,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yes, I love that example. And I remember talking to one of my friends who's like super sweet, like angel energy. She's just like the like pure love, you know? And I remember her telling me like, because I was like, we were talking about something and I was like, oh well, call me a bitch, you know? And she was like, I love that you have that ability to do that. And I didn't really notice it before that. And it's like maybe because I have had a lot of experience with people calling me that in my life, I had to get to a point where it's like, yeah, if that's what you want to call me, fine. But the answer's still no. I'm still going to take care of myself. I'm going to still hold this boundary. I'm still going to hold this line. I'm still going to do what's best for me. You can call me whatever name you want, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I'm not attached to not being that so much that I don't give myself permission to live my life in the way that's actually in authentic alignment for me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's also claiming the parts of ourselves that sit there in the shadows. They are still there, like
They're
I
there.
can I
Hmm.
can definitely, I think I shared this with you yesterday about my old boss when I first started working as a park ranger many, many moons ago. And I had to do enforcement work, and my boss would always be on me because he would be like, "Oh, you're like too much of a pushover. You show up and you talk to these people like trying to write them a ticket, and you're all like giggly and happy, and like he's like, no one's going to take you seriously." And
Hmm.
that was like because I was super insecure about that. But there was one time where I had to kind of I was standing up for my coworkers, and my inner bitch came out, and I just started ranting. I mean, I didn't, it wasn't even what I was saying. I wasn't yelling, But that energy poured out and he could feel it. And he was like, whoa, who's that girl? I don't even recognize you. But the thing is, we have all these different, we're complex. And so
Mm-hmm.
the more we can tap into those places and spaces, and for me, I need to access that sometimes because
You
we
do in
do.
business. That's just the way it goes. People are going to try and
Exactly.
push you around. That's life, And if you let them, your business is going to suffer, period. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
And
Because
people,
sometimes you do need to say no. And you need that energy to
yes,
back you up.
exactly. And here's the other thing that for me, I realized and discovered, and like, delving into how this connects to boundaries, I think is an important piece because when we get angry, a lot of times that's showing us where someone is crossing the line or violating our boundaries, right?
Yes.
Um, or we're feeling the pressure. So I notice a lot of times when you're like a spiritual type of person, you get mad when people ask you for something that you want to say no to because you don't feel like you have permission to say no. So you're like, how dare they ask me? And it's like, well, they're asking, they're not demanding. You can just say no, and then that's like the end of it. But we have so much conditioning around the fact that we're supposed to be nice and all this other crap that just the fact that someone asking us is something that we want to say no to pisses us off and makes us feel threatened, right? So it's like once we can like be like, oh, you know what, this is making me angry. This is a sign that I need to say no, and I need to let go of attachment to how they respond to my no, as long as I say it in a clean, respectful way, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. 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 Because that is what anger is there for. Anger is there to
Mm-hmm.
protect us and to let us
Mm-hmm.
know when someone's crossed the line with us.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is there about, when we have those feelings of like resentment, because they happen anyway. I mean, you can be nice, like you said, but if you
Mm-hmm.
take on, say, a client that's not right for you, and then the next thing you know, you're in that place of this person's, taking a lot of energy, they're high maintenance, they're not doing the work that they said that they would show up for, and all of a sudden you're in exhaustion, you're in burnout, and then you're resentful. You don't want to show up for work. You don't want to show up for, your business or clients, whoever it is. It could be your relationship dynamics. And we don't want to live
Mm-hmm.
in that energy either. So it's so much easier
Yeah.
to deal
Yeah.
with and partner with anger. So much
Yes.
easier, so much more powerful.
Yeah. So, like, when you say that, this is another piece of like the boundaries thing, right? Is that like when we don't have clear boundaries, we leak our energy all over the place, right? So in an attempt to be like high vibe by being nice and like putting a silver line on everything before actually like doing the work, and finding the true silver lining, what we're actually doing is we're like dispersing and scattering our energy so we can't hold the vibration that we need to hold to meet the clients that we want to attract, which will not do any of that kind of crap. That
Yeah.
won't have us feeling that way, right?
Yeah.
But when we're so busy, like just like, okay, let me just be nice, then you actually don't have the energy to hold the business that you want to create, that's going to attract those clients, that's going to satisfy your soul, that's going to fulfill you, that's going to make the kind of money that's going to make you feel like it's all really actually worth it. you know
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes we have to get to that point where we realize I have to make a decision. I've gotten to this point several times. I have to remind myself all the time. Do I want people to like me, or do I want to do the work that I'm meant to do in this world? Those are two different
exactly.
things. They're not the same thing.
No.
Sometimes my
Yeah.
clients don't like
And
me.
like,
at certain
right.
points, like of working with me, sometimes they're like, things that you say are pissing me off. And I'm like, great.
That's
that's
another
how I can
point.
that's how I can get you to where we need to go.
Yes, that's another good point, because if we only tell our clients what they want to hear, and we are attached to like what their opinion is of us, we're going to not actually be of service to them. We're not going to give them the medicine that they need. I have to tell clients shit they don't want to hear all the time, and I make an effort to let them know that whatever I'm saying is coming from a place of love and because I want them to win and I care about them. And I'm going to tell you the fucking truth because otherwise I'm not going to feel good about letting you pay me, you know?
Yeah. I
Because I
love
know you're not going to get the results that you paid me for if I don't tell you the truth, you know? And
exactly.
sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes the truth hurts, you know?
Exactly. But yeah, when we can start to kind of differentiate that, then we can actually start doing the work that we're meant to do and show up for in this world. So,
Mhm.
yeah, super juicy stuff. Well, as we just wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you if you have any last pieces and thoughts. And then I just want everyone to know how they can get in touch with you. So if you guys have been kind of like swimming around in entrepreneurial land and being like, I don't really know what I'm doing. By the way, I know like I work with a lot of different people to support me in many aspects of my life, including business. And I am a part of Umoh's community as well because that support and having that community is super important to me. So if you don't already have, I know one of actually, I did an Akashic reading for Ross. If you're watching this video, I love it. He actually hired a mentor and he's like, I did what you said. I did what happened in the reading. And it's just like been boom, boom, boom. Because this is the thing when we have the right support and alignment, things happen.
Yeah,
So
really fast, really fast.
exactly.
I
So
love that
and
you brought that up. Yeah, because, we have the whole mythology, in the West of like the Lone Ranger and, you know, the like hero that like does it all on their own or pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Now, I'm not saying that you don't do the work, but the truth is like no man is an island and nobody creates anything great by themselves. If you look at any like Olympic athlete, they have like tons of coaches, they have practitioners that they see, they have doctors, nutritionists. Like if you want to create success in a big way, whatever that definition is for you, you need to have a team around you or it's not going to happen. you know
yeah.
so I love that you brought that up. So last thing I want to share is just that about kind of tapping into that fire in yourself in your anger and using it in as fuel in your business. The other piece is that like as you burn through all these identities and these old ideas of who you're allowed to be and you get into deeper touch with yourself, then it gets easier and easier to see what is special about me. What is my unique vibrational essence, right? What are my divine magical gifts that I have to give the world, right? Once you start to get in touch with your own fire, your own aliveness, that gets a lot easier to clarify. That gets a lot easier to experience from the inside so that you know where to direct your energy on the outside in your work and in your brand. And that's
Yeah.
really powerful.
That is powerful. And I hear that a lot from people who are like feeling stuck or they feel unclear and they're looking for clarity. And so that's a really, if that is you, rewind and listen to that again. Maybe 10 times.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so I have a couple of things coming up. I'm going to be doing a deep dive for the winter solstice on kind of how to up level your brand and from the inner first, and then we can start looking at the like tangible aspects of your brand. And one other thing I want to say, you may have noticed that when I talked about your brand, I did not talk about your photos. I didn't talk about your fonts. I didn't talk about your website. I didn't talk about your brand colors because that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Wait, say that
So I
again.
have never in my life had someone come to me and be like, I really want to work with you. You sound amazing. I love the results you're getting for your clients, but your brand colors just don't work for me. Nobody's going to say that, right? So people are asked backwards with their branding. They focus on all the things that they think are going to make a difference, which is all about looking good, and they don't focus on these inner pieces of some of the stuff that we're talking about, right? Like, who are you? What do you stand for? What are your brand distinctions? What makes you special? What makes you unique? How are you positioning yourself in the marketplace? Who is your ideal client, right? So first I'm going to be doing a little work on the inner stuff, and then answering those questions becomes a lot easier. So I'm going to do a special live for the winter solstice doing that. So if you're interested in that, I don't have it all together yet, but you can just message me or follow me on Facebook, and I'll be updating there. And I also have a program in the new year that's coming down the line that's all about taking a deep dive into that. So if you're interested, reach out to me. I would love to play with you.
Awesome. And so the best way to get a hold of you, Facebook?
Definitely Facebook, yes. And I check my messages. If somebody, honestly, if someone just messages me hi and doesn't say anything else, I don't answer. Or says like something sexual, I'm not gonna answer you. Other than that, I will answer.
So no
And
dick
I
pics.
my What'd you say?
No dick pics.
Exactly. I have received those, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I don't understand this.
So
Hazards of
Messenger.
being out in public.
Messenger is the best way to get a hold of you. So if you guys have any questions, clarification, if you're curious, and I highly recommend joining the community. The Dark Temple, again, is in West community, and I'm in there as well. It's awesome. You've got some really great training. So if you guys want more and to kind of like stew in some more like really juicy information, there's stuff in there. And if you know that she's your girl, then just hit her up in the messenger right away because you've got some juicy stuff going on. And do you do one-on-one coaching as well?
I do. I do. Yeah. Don't I don't have a lot of one-on-one clients because I don't want to. And I like to be very high touch, and I can't be as high touch and as intimate with my clients if I have a lot of them. But I do have a couple spots right now. So yeah, I love working with people privately. I have to keep it I have to keep my numbers small, like we're talking about the energy, right? Management,
Mhm.
so that I can develop the relationship and create the results that I want to create, that I'm committed to creating for my clients.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see what's going to happen this weekend, what you're coming up with. And I just
Thank
wanted to
you.
thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and experience. And seriously, like the nuggets that you guys take away from these videos, you can implement this stuff into your life right now and
Mhm.
make magic happen. It's really up to
And make
you.
money.
And make money. Yeah. Make money. And go do your thing. Like go do what you're meant to be here for and get paid for it. I mean, is there anything better than actually, showing up, knowing what you're here to do, doing it and rocking it? I mean, as simple as that.
Not much, right?
Yeah. So thank you. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, love. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the juicy conversation, and also all of your insights, and um, all of your beauty and wisdom. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much, dear one. And thank you, all of you who joined me. Again, you can find Uma on Facebook, Uma Luna. She's linked in the messenger, and I'll post a link to your group eventually in the comments below on this video, so you can find her group, the Dark Temple. You can
Also,
also find her in my group, which is Moved by Spirit. So, yeah,
which is also amazing.
which is also amazing. It's the what is it? Someone called it. Deidre called it the incubator. The
Mm.
incubator of like showing up. So if you're like just wanting to dip your toes in the water and you don't want to go live on your personal page, this is kind of what we do in my group. Is kind of get warmed up to things that kind of scare the pants off us a little bit, so that we can practice leaning into the discomfort of of, of our places and spaces. Well, my dear, thank you again so much. Thank you all who have contributed. Again, if you guys have questions, let us know. And yeah, reach out for support, however it is. But support people. Don't go at it alone, please. We need you. We need you. All right, love.
Thank you, love. Thank you,
Mwah.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Mwah.
Lots of love. And I think I just pressed. There we go.